Mr. President, members of the Senate, Senate Bill 2213 is a bill to allow school districts to change terms of office, enter into agreements with counties to conduct regular school board elections during the June primary of legislative elections. The purpose for the change would be to increase voter turnout for the school board election, have a cost savings for sharing the resources. Mr. President, your Senate Education Committee did not have any opposition to Senate Bill 2213. However, there were some concerns with the school district boundaries did not usually match the precinct boundaries and just do not mandate that they be conducted by the county. After some research into the request, it was noted that some school districts and counties are currently having their elections at the same time and would be left up to the local school districts and counties. Therefore, your Senate Education Committee recommends a do not pass on Senate Bill 2213 with a vote of 5-1.
Further discussion, Senator Miller.
Mr. President, I had to stand up and defend my bill a little bit. We have a little bit of an issue in this state with voter participation, especially in school board elections. In the last school board election in Park River, North Dakota, this 2014, it was held on primary election day. It was conducted by a school board in Park River. Generally speaking, we vote by mail, and there's one precinct that's open during the election day, and that's in Grafton. And you got to understand, this occurs not only in my district or in my home, but throughout the entire state. There's similar situations all over. And what happens is people get confused. They think they're going to vote, and this is all going to be on the ballot, and it's not. So what happened was about 55 people voted in a school district election where there probably should have been over 1,000. And you compare those numbers to how many people voted in the city of Park River election alone, which was a smaller jurisdiction than the school district. There was about 400 people that voted in that election. We have to encourage and promote more participation in the electoral process. And this bill isn't impossible to achieve what I'm asking to do. It might be a little bit of a difficulty at first, but the technology to make this work is becoming more and more readily available. Soon, the Secretary of State's office should have the technology to make this work lickety-split with GPS coordinates and things like that. They'll be able to run poll books and conduct a much more broad and fair election, which I think is vitally important to better government. So I ask you to support the bill because even though it has its difficulties, it's not impossible. If it was impossible, I'd ask you to kill it, but it's not. And so I think it's important that we encourage and promote, as the Constitution demands us, that we have a system throughout the state of free, uniform education. And the electoral process is vitally important to that system.
Senator Davison.
Mr. President, when the senator from District 10 came to testify on the bill, I thought his points were excellent. And when I walked and campaigned this fall, people would ask me, well, why are you running? And some of the shorter version of why I was running was because I was looking for ways for government to be more effective and more efficient, and we might even save some money. And so although the Senate Education Committee didn't agree with this bill 100% because we didn't want to mandate the primary election date or the general election date for the school board's election, we amended that and pulled that out and just required that schools could run their school board election between, I think, of 1st of April and the primary election. And they would be required to have 4-year terms for their school board members. And so as I called around, for those that know that I'm work for an REA here, and I talked to our superintendents in southeast North Dakota and started talking to them about, how would this work in your district? We already have 20 districts that have 4-year terms. And we started talking about every other year they wouldn't have to run an election. They would save time for their staff to put the election together. They would save money, about $1,500 an election times 150 school districts, about $225,000. And they would have more continuity on their school board because every year they wouldn't have to run an election, so they'd have those school board members for 2 full years. And so I thought to myself, well, I need to vote no on this because I think we should vote green on this bill, because I told people that I was going to look for ways to save time, efficiency, and save money, and I think our schools deserve that, and I think a little nudge, they come and ask us for money all the time. I sit in committee hearings. I think we can give a little nudge back and ask them to save a little bit of money and time by having school board elections, school board terms every 4 years. So I ask for a green vote on this bill.
Senator Flacco.
Mr. President, the bill as it came to us, really what the purpose was to increase the participation in elections. A noble cause. As it's been amended to essentially have 4-year terms now, you know, the more I thought about it, and as much as I think that 4-year terms are okay, and my school district does that, I'm not sure that we as a state should dictate to the local school districts if they wish to have 3-year terms or 4-year terms, and if we should stagger them. I mean, there's certainly good reasons on both sides if you wish to have a 3-year term or a 4-year term. A 3-year term, maybe somebody who is a little hesitant about running for office may choose to do that. A 4-year term allows them to go deeper into it, and there's some timing advantages possibly to that. I think what really drives people, and we've seen this to the polls, are things that they really find important. Issues certainly drive, whether they're measures that are put on the ballot by the citizenry or by we as legislators, but also if they're in tight races. And right or wrong, we oftentimes have trouble getting people to run for some of these lower offices, whether they be school board or city council even, and down the line. So I don't know that that will happen in a meaningful way. Certainly my friend to my left, whose district I can't remember, 10, there we go, makes the point about, you know, if they can vote by mail, certainly they would have ample opportunity, and if you're looking for a higher voter turnout, I think sometimes that's also reluctance, or people saying, we're pretty comfortable with what we have, or that there just isn't that hotly contested race to bring them to the ballot. So I don't know that this is the right tool to accomplish what we want, and I think, again, it erodes local control.
Further discussion, Senator Miller.
Mr. President, a couple more points. You know, yes, we want to promote local control, but this is about creating a uniformity across the state. Having some districts have 3-year terms, some districts have 4-year terms. You have people moving around the state. They're going to see, they're not going to understand the system in which they live in and work in. And I think it's very important that we start moving towards a single ballot for the electoral process. And the school districts can start to fall on getting to these 4-year terms now. Then in a few years, when everything's working right, they can easily move and make the transition. It's an important process. The numbers prove that when they vote in a primary or general election, there's more voter participation, dramatically higher than when a school board conducts their election independently.
Any further discussion, Senator Nelson?
Well, Mr. President, 2 of the previous speakers represent the same school district I do. When I was on the school board many years ago, we had 9 members. We still have 9 members. We had 3-year terms, and we rotated 3-3-3. Several years ago, by local option, we switched to have our school board elections at the primary election. And they switched to 4 people elected 1 year, 5 in the other. It's worked just fine. But the thing is, it was decided locally, not out here. I would encourage a no vote.
Senator Flacco.
Well, Mr. President, I would just also add, though, that if we, as an example, if we were to switch them all to the general election, the November election, while there would maybe be a high voter turnout, one, it doesn't work too well with some of the schedules, but secondly, when we get that many issues on the ballot, I mean, look at the drop-off you see as you move down through the ballot. And not to disparage anybody, but, when you have the local water board person, there's one person, there's a lot of drop-off where there's not people even voting. Even look at the drop-off on the number of people who vote in the Senate race, in the North Dakota Senate, versus the House race. Now, we would, of course, like to think that we're, just that much more popular, but that might not be the case. But I think when we put too many things on the ballot, it doesn't allow a lot of focus, whether it's forms or other things, because there's just so many things that just swallow up those other times, whether it's presidential elections, U.S. Senate elections, major initiated measures that often fall, like this past year on the ballot where people said there's 8 things on there. There's just too many. So that's why, in combination with the local control, I and the committee oppose this bill.
Any further discussion? Hearing none, the question is on the final passage of Senate Bill 2213. Would the Secretary please open the key? All senators record your vote. All senators have voted. Any senator wishing to change their vote? Secretary, close the key. Final tally on Senate Bill 2213 reveals 12 senators voting yea, 35 senators voting nay. The bill is lost. Continuing on